Hello, I'm Alex from Annie Best Recaps, and I'd love to tell you a story. The life of a salaryman is no joke, and our protagonist, Van, knows this all too well, since he was that type of office worker who was completely exhausted, working 24 hours a day and still ending up without a single penny by the end of the month. I have to admit that this premise already triggers a lot of identification in me because of that routine where you just want a break but can never get one. This gray reality changes when he reincarnates into the body of a tiny, noble toddler, but the transition leaves his head spinning because the last clear memory he has is heading home from work, even though he also vaguely remembers being born in this new place. He tries to understand what is happening and walks over to the window to look outside, but he is immediately stopped by his maid, Till, who rushes over to prevent him from having a nasty accident. At that moment, Van realizes he has memories of both Till and his new family, so he concludes that he's living out one of those reincarnation cases everyone talks about on the internet. Till thinks it is very strange that he can already speak so well at only 2 years old, especially since just yesterday he was still trying to bite his own foot, but she simply assumes the boy randomly gained awareness. Later on, during lunch with the family, his father, a man named Jalpa, asks everyone what their plans are for the day. While most say they will practice magic, Van surprises everyone by calmly stating that he wants to learn about the history and culture of the country. For a father who expected nothing but nonsensical babble from a 2-year-old, seeing such maturity is a huge source of pride, and Jalpa already starts projecting that his son will be an exceptional noble. He mentions that he can't wait for Van's magic appraisal at age 8, believing he will certainly inherit the family's fire affinity, which ends up creating a bit of jealousy in his older brothers. In this world, nobles value offensive magic above all else, but since Van is still too small for that, he begins training with the head butler in academic studies. You might think studying would be a breeze for someone with knowledge from a past life, but learning a new language and the entire complex history of a different kingdom is a real challenge. The only silver lining is that integral calculus does not exist there, which spares the boy from a mathematical trauma that many of us know all too well. 2 years pass, and Van begins basic sword training with Till, but the short legs of a child make movement very difficult, and the maid takes the opportunity to tease him for pure fun. When the head maid finds out about Till's behavior, the other servants suggest that Van should give her a severe punishment, since disrespecting a noble is a serious crime in that land. Van sees no need for anything heavy because he actually enjoys the playfulness, so he just gives Till a flick on the forehead and says that is enough punishment. By age 5, Van has mastered control over his small body and can fight on equal terms with older boys. He predicts his opponent's moves with ease because they use no strategy at all, which leaves everyone impressed with his strength and also his kindness, since he treats commoners with a lot of respect. During a break, the night captain, D, shows up to chat and is so admired by the boy's skill that he offers to train him personally. Van tries to dodge it by saying he already studies too much, but the captain simply decides to change his schedule to cram more sword training in the middle of it. With no way out, Van asks the captain to go easy, but D has no mercy and goes all out in the training. The entire day consists of an absurd amount of effort, and Van starts to wonder if the captain is even human, since the man's idea of resting is doing air squats during the break. After a year in this brutal routine of studies and training, Van comes close to a mental breakdown and just wishes to play like a normal kid. Noticing his master's exhaustion, Till lets him know that he is allowed to take a day off, something he hadn't even considered before. He decides to go to the market for the first time and is amazed by the crowds and the grandeur of the Merry Chamber of Commerce, the largest company in the kingdom. However, the tour mood ends when he sees a man dragging a boy to be sold as a slave. He's shocked to see that people think this is normal and discovers that poor families often sell their children for money. An employee of the chamber named Rosalie recognizes Van as the 4th son of the Marquis and offers her assistance, then asks for a price estimate for the boy being sold. Rosalie evaluates that the boy has nothing special and that his thieving magic is worth almost nothing, offering less than 3 silver pieces. The boy's father becomes furious with the low value and starts taking his anger out on his son, stomping him on the ground. Before the man can leave to try selling the boy somewhere else, Van intervenes and offers 5 silver coins for the purchase. As soon as the deal is closed, Van frees the boy, who introduces himself as Kamshin, and says that from that moment on, he is free to do whatever he wants. Everyone is surprised because they expected Van to use the boy as a slave, but he makes it clear that he does not support slavery. Since Kamshin has nowhere to go, Van decides to take him to the mansion. In order for Van's father to accept the boy's presence, they end up sealing a master and servant contract, and Rosalie helps perform the spell that creates a crest on Kamshin's hand. Weeks later, Kamshin is already adapted as Van's personal aide and tries to help him escape the heavy training of Captain D, but ends up being caught in Van's place and dragged off to train as well. Time flies, and Van reaches age 8, the day of his big magic appraisal. The expectation is that he will awaken something powerful like fire or wind, but reality is a bucket of cold water when the oracle reveals that he possesses only production magic. Van's father is blinded by rage because this is considered the worst magic of all, since it requires materials and a giant mental effort to create simple things. Jalpa considers his own son a disgrace and goes as far as drawing his sword to kill him right there in front of everyone. At the last second, the brother Mercia steps in and suggests a less bloody alternative, sending Van to a remote and worthless village on the border of the territory. Jalpa accepts the idea and orders Van to disappear from the mansion as quickly as possible. Mercia apologizes to his brother for not being able to get something better, but Van is actually happy with the news, because all he wanted was a quiet life away from all that pressure. The next morning, Van prepares his things and finds out that he won't be allowed to take any knights, but Mercia hires adventurers to help him on the journey. To Van's surprise, the maid Till and the Captain D decide to accompany him into exile, ignoring the Marquis' orders. Even the butler joins the group, and as they depart, the citizens who liked Van very much show up to give him a hero's send-off. And that's where the episode ends, and what an interesting premiere we had with this anime, right? Did you guys like it and want the continuation? Then leave it in the comments that you want the next part, smash that like button and the hype to strengthen this video, and subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any news.